What is up, everybody? Welcome into the show. Another 49ers report coming your way. The Niners getting a much-needed triple dose of good news, even though that their season ended on Saturday against the Seahawks in the NFC divisional round. And we also have a marquee Robert Saleh update. Is one team in the NFL getting close to hiring Robert Saleh as their next head coach? Let's begin here with a triple dose of good news for San Francisco. It was a locker room clean-out day for the Niners. So multiple players addressing the media, doing some interviews before they depart for the offseason. And we have a pretty major George Kittle Achilles update. The Niners star tight end, still the best in the game in my opinion, underwent surgery last week after popping his Achilles on the road against the Philadelphia Eagles in the wild card round. And here's what he had to say about that Achilles injury, the surgery, and his recovery. Overall, I'm fantastic, Kittle said. Surgery went really, really good. Surgeon was incredibly happy with it. Little background into it. Best case scenario when you tear your Achilles is that you tear it up high by your soleus, which is what I did. I had a clean tear. They didn't have to drill into my heel. And where the repair was is where there is more blood flow. And so it takes some time off the recovery time period. When you tear your Achilles, that's about as bad of an injury as you can suffer, especially for a skill position player like Kittle, who relies on speed and explosiveness and strength to pick up yards after the catch, to break tackles, especially given his playing style. And Kittle added he expects to play next year in 2026 well before November. So the bad news is he popped his Achilles, right? And he's going to be out for a really long time, and it's going to take some time away from his 2026 season. In 2025, he also missed a lot of time, and this is after this past offseason, George Kittle became the richest tight end in the history of the National Football League. But the good news is the surgery went well. The type of Achilles tear is the one that you want to have if you do tear your Achilles. And it's looking as though all of next year is not going to be lost, which was a possibility considering when he suffered this injury. The date of the Achilles tear against the Eagles, January 11th. As recently as like a couple of years ago, he may have been out all of the 2026 season. But if he's saying he expects to be back well before November, November would be 10 months post-Achilles tear. So he tore his Achilles on January 11th. Then he got surgery last week. He's already in the Bay Area. He was in the locker room. And even if he's back at some point in November, he still is able to play a bulk of the regular season. November, December, some of January, get ready for the NFL playoffs, because if the Niners make some necessary changes on offense and on defense, I do think that they can be a Super Bowl contender. Kittle this past year, the production was not a problem. I thought he looked really good. In only 11 games, 11 games, he was targeted 69 times, had 59 catches, 628 yards, 7 touchdowns. You translate that to an entire season, George Kittle is closing in on another 1,000-yard season with double-digit touchdowns, and he'd have, let's say, 80 catches, somewhere in that neighborhood. So I do think that if George Kittle can come back from this, he can still be a productive player. Of course, him suffering that Achilles at his age, he's 32 years old, you have some concerns about what type of player he looks like coming off an injury like that with the money that he is getting paid. But prior to that injury, he was looking damn good. And prior to the Achilles injury, what was the injury? It was a hamstring. It was a soft tissue. Unfortunately, he has a history with that, but it's not the worst thing in the world. Now, looking ahead to 2026, a lot of offensive concerns for this football team. The Niners are old. They are slow. They are aging. And against that Seahawks team, that's the cream of the crop right there with their defense. They're not going anywhere. The Seahawks were not threatened or phased at all by anybody on that Niners offense outside of Brock Purdy. Some players said after the game, like, Brock Purdy's really good. But the receivers, 3 catches for 24 yards. Jake Tonches, good backup tight end, solid player, but he can't block. Christian McCaffrey, he got beat up in that game and really didn't do anything when he was on the field, and of course, he got hurt. So a big point of emphasis this offseason for the Niners. Get faster, and more explosive. Improve the offensive line. You don't do those things, you'll continue to get whacked like a snitch mobster, which is what the Seahawks did on Saturday night. You make those necessary improvements, you can contend and compete with a team of that caliber. So that is the first element of the triple dose of good news, that the surgery went well and George Kittle expects to be back well before any of us anticipated when he suffered that injury against the Eagles. How about Mykel Williams? We have a Mykel Williams injury update. 11th overall pick from the 2025 NFL draft. A lot of casuals are going to say, Chase, he only had 1 sack this year. He didn't do anything. His impact went far beyond the box score. Now for Mykel, he suffered his torn ACL on November 2nd. Clean ACL on that awful MetLife Stadium turf. He said his recovery, admittedly, has been hard. Mentally, physically, it's the worst injury that he's had in his football life. But Mykel Williams said today he expects to be back during training camp. One of the lingering questions I've had over the last couple of months, especially going into free agency and the draft, the Niners pass rush, it needs to get better. They are extremely light at defensive end. And so one thing I was talking about late in the year, when is Mykel Williams going to come back? When is Nick Bosa going to come back? Well, Mykel expects to be ready during training camp, which means hopefully he doesn't miss any time to start the year. Mykel Williams had a profound impact on this Niners defense outside of sacks. And sometimes I look at sack numbers like wins and losses for a pitcher. Doesn't tell the full story. You can go 5-15, but what if you have an ERA of sub-3 or in the low 3s? Pretty damn good pitcher right there. So for Mykel, he didn't have the gaudy sack numbers, but he transformed what has been an awful rush defense and what was, after he got hurt, a bad run defense. The Niners' rush defense EPA, expected points added, weeks 1 through 9 when he was playing, 6th in the NFL. Post Mykel Williams injury, weeks 10 through 18, they dropped 20 spots from 6th to 26th. That's because Mykel Williams is a great edge setter and a really good run defender. And that's going to continue, especially at his size. And as a pass rusher, he gives you some juice rushing from defensive tackle along that interior defensive line. As for Nick Bosa, he was not on hand today, and he hasn't been around the facility much. This isn't a Brandon Ayuk situation. Brandon Ayuk was never voted a team captain. Brandon Ayuk has never been a good teammate. Nick Bosa was voted a team captain by his teammates. The Niners love the way that he goes about his work. He's just recovered, and he's done his rehabilitation process more so away from the facility. So he was not on hand today for a locker room clean-out day. But if Mykel Williams expects to be back during training camp, and he suffered his torn ACL in week 9, in November, Nick Bosa, who also had a clean ACL tear, tore his ACL on September 21st. So if Mykel can be back during training camp, that has to be a good sign for Nick Bosa that next year to start the year, he's not going to miss time either. Let's hope. That's a triple dose of good news for San Francisco here, coming off a really ugly 41-6 defeat and thumping at the hands of the Seattle Seahawks. Coming up next, we have a Robert Saleh update. Is he about to get a head coaching job with one team looking for a head coach? If he does leave the Niners, I do have some of my favorite Robert Saleh replacements who the Niners can target for defensive coordinator. But let's get to our sponsor here. Today's 49ers Report is sponsored by Bubs Naturals. Their collagen has been a game changer for me in my supplementation and in my everyday process and routine. I love the protein count in Bubs Naturals collagen, but also I just love mixing it with my coffee because it tastes really good and it's so good for you. So a lot of you at the end of 2025, starting off 2026, you've been traveling a lot. You've been eating a lot of good food. That can set you back with some of your fitness goals. Is your recovery from the holiday craziness taking longer than it used to? Getting older, yeah, it can suck. It's 2026. So that means it's time to get back into the swing of things. A healthy routine, looking good, but also feeling good. And over the last couple of months, I've been using Bubs Naturals Collagen Peptides. And in 2026, I'm helping my body turn back the clock. You might not know this, but the things that happen to our body as we get older, stiff joints in the morning, longer recovery from the gym, hair thinning, nails breaking, even skin losing that smooth glow, these things can be fixed. These things happen in the first place because your body's collagen levels start to naturally decline beginning as early as your mid-20s. Collagen is often referred to as the glue that holds our bodies together. So you can imagine that a decline in collagen production as you age has some big impacts on your body. I can tell you that from my account. And that's where Bubs Naturals Collagen Peptides comes in. Bubs helps to restore collagen levels closer to what your body naturally had in its youth. So your joints feel stronger, your hair and nails grow healthier, and your skin looks smoother. Since I started taking Bubs Naturals Collagen, I'm looking and feeling like I'm in my 20s again. Bubs has added a new meaning to New Year, New Me in 2026 by actually helping your body feel younger. And what I love about this, no junk, zero sugar, sweeteners, or fillers, third-party tested, NSF certified for sport, Whole30 approved, so you know it's clean and trustworthy. Sustainably sourced from grass-fed pasture-raised cattle, voted 2024's best collagen by Health.com, and over 100,000 happy customers. So here's the deal. Live better longer. For a limited time, our listeners are getting 20% off at Bubs Naturals by using our code CHAT at checkout. Just head to bubsnaturals.com/chat. Use that code CHAT. You're all set. When you make your purchase, let them know that Chat Sports sent you. All right, Robert Saleh update. Robert Saleh, as I'm recording this on this Monday afternoon, is currently in the Tennessee Titans building, and he is interviewing for their head coaching job. If Robert Saleh does not get an offer from Tennessee, he will fly to Arizona to have an in-person interview with the Cardinals on Tuesday. The Titans finalists to replace Brian Callahan, who they fired during the season last year, Jeff Hafley, Packers defensive coordinator, Matt Nagy, former Bears head coach, Chiefs offensive coordinator. He's already getting replaced by Kansas City. They're bringing back Eric Bieniemy and Robert Saleh. But you can take one of these names away because the Miami Dolphins, they have their new head coach. They are hiring the Green Bay Packers defensive coordinator, former Boston College head coach in Jeff Hafley, to replace Mike McDaniel as their new head coach. That would mean, if these reports are correct, Robert Saleh, Matt Nagy, the finalist for that Titans job. If I'm Tennessee, I'd also like to interview Mike McCarthy, but the Tennessee Titans aren't a well-run organization. Shoot, they traded away A.J. Brown, and they had Mike Vrabel not too long ago. Look at what both those guys have done since leaving. If Saleh gets a head coaching job, something to watch is if he takes current Niners offensive coordinator Clay Kubiak with him. Clay Kubiak does not call plays for the Niners offense. Kyle Shanahan does. Clay Kubiak, if he goes with Saleh, would be able to call plays for the Tennessee Titans. That would be appealing to him. Is the Titans job a good gig? Some people will say no. I'm actually going to say yes. They have over $100 million in cap space coming up. They're moving into a new stadium. It's going to be state-of-the-art facility in Nashville. You are in Nashville, one of the fastest-growing cities in the United States. You have some pieces on defense. What did Robert Saleh also not have with the Jets? A quarterback. He was forced to win games with Zach Wilson. Aaron Rodgers popped his Achilles 4 plays into the season. It's impossible to win that way. I think that Cam Ward can become a pretty good player, and on offense, they do have some decent pieces. So I think if Saleh went to Tennessee, he'd be given a better opportunity to win compared to his time with the Jets. Plus, you're playing in the AFC South. It's not like there are juggernauts inside that division. I like what Jacksonville did this year. Houston has a scary defense, but they have questions at quarterback. And the Indianapolis Colts, who's their quarterback going to be in 2026? We have no idea. Now, Clay Kubiak, speaking of him, did interview for the Pittsburgh Steelers head coaching job as far as their first wind of head coaching interviews. So he's in the mix there. His dad, of course, Gary Kubiak, longtime successful head coach at the NFL level. If Robert Saleh does leave the Niners, my top Saleh replacements: Brian Flores, defensive coordinator for the Minnesota Vikings. His contract is up. Now, he's also in the running for some head coaching jobs. I think he'd be a decent fit with a team like the Las Vegas Raiders, but one of the top defensive minds in football. Jim Schwartz, defensive coordinator for Cleveland, is in the running for that Browns job. Kevin Stefanski, his former head coach, took the Atlanta job. He's retaining Jeff Ulbrich. Jim Schwartz runs the wide nine. Raheem Morris and Kyle Shanahan are very close. Kyle Shanahan has been quoted as saying, if he were a GM, Raheem Morris would be the head coach that he would want to hire. He got fired by Atlanta, used to be a DC under Sean McVay. Would he get a third opportunity to be a head coach? Not sure. He might be able to be your longtime defensive coordinator. And then if you want to go with an internal option who knows the scheme and worked under Salah and has familiarity now with Kyle Shanahan, you could internally promote Gus Bradley. I just think there are better options out there. Don't forget to give me a follow on social media. You can find me on X, Instagram, TikTok, @Chase_Senior, Facebook, Chase Senior Chat Sports. I'm always talking Niners here. I'm doing the same thing over there.